Hello, dear family. Welcome to Echoes and Tales. Kindly hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and loved ones. And be sure to turn on post notifications so you never miss our upcoming stories. We truly appreciate your support. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the tale. In the warm, sun-drenched village of Ogbugiri in Kogi State, a young man named Onah Ocholi walked barefoot across dry, cracked soil, balancing a jerry can on his head. His face, weathered for someone only 22, bore the subtle exhaustion of someone who had carried more than water his whole life. He carried unfulfilled potential. Onah had once been a brilliant student. In JSS 1, he could recite all 36 states and their capitals without blinking. By JSS 3, he had begun helping the headmaster draft letters in flawless English. Teachers whispered about his mind, saying he would go far. His mother used to nod with pride whenever they said so. "My pikin go be big man," she would declare, pounding yam with extra strength. But school ended for Onah long before it should have. His father died suddenly in a fishing accident on the river Benue. With no other income, Onah dropped out to help his mother sell firewood and later became a bricklayer's apprentice. When he handed his books to his younger cousin, it felt like burying a piece of himself. Still, something inside Onah refused to die. He read torn newspapers that wrapped Akara. He borrowed old textbooks left behind by secondary school leavers. He copied passages from books in church libraries with the devotion of a priest. But there was no certificate, no tuition money, no formal hope. Just curiosity, raw, undying curiosity. One afternoon, while waiting for a lorry of cement at a dusty construction site in Ida, a stranger arrived. Tall, bearded, with skin the color of old kola nut, the man introduced himself as Mr. Tolu Falai, an engineer from Lagos. He was inspecting the site and noticed Onah scribbling in a tattered notebook beneath the shade of a mango tree. "What are you writing?" the man asked. "Physics," Onah said, nervously standing. "Just revision on tension and pulleys." The man squinted. "From where did you learn that?" Onah shrugged. "Library. Old textbooks." That moment changed everything. Tolu, impressed, asked questions only an SSS 3 student would know. Onah answered most with quiet precision. By the end of the conversation, Tolu didn't just see a laborer, he saw a mind. "You should be in school," Tolu said. Onah nodded. "I should." Tolu reached into his bag, scribbled a Lagos address on a page, and tore it out. "If you ever get tired of should, come here. We run a learning center. Free for the curious." Onah folded the paper, tucked it deep into his bag, and said nothing. But his heart, while silent, began to beat again, not with certainty, but with possibility. He didn't know how or when, but he would get to Lagos, even if he had to walk. 3 months later, Onah Ocholi arrived at Jibu Park in Lagos, with nothing but a nylon bag of clothes, a notebook, and a rumbling belly. The journey from Kogi had taken 20 hours, 5 breakdowns, and 1 fight between passengers over who farted in the bus. But none of that mattered now. He was in Iko, the city of dreams, the place where possibilities danced in traffic jams and success was hidden in every street corner, or so he thought. Lagos didn't smile at him. It smirked. The air reeked of sweat, fumes, and urgency. The roads were impatient. The people were faster than time. Onah stood at the edge of the road like a misplaced comma in a sentence he couldn't read. The paper with the address was still in his bag, creased and slightly damp, but clear. Falai Learning Center, Akoka, Yaba. "Where be Akoka?" he asked a Danfo conductor. "Na 200 naira," the man replied, not answering the question. "Where you day?" The conductor rolled his eyes. "Climb. I go tell you when we reach." 2 Danfo rides later, Onah stood before a gate with peeling blue paint and a small signboard that read, "Falai Center for Independent Learning, Curious Minds Welcome." It didn't look like a school. No uniforms. No noise. Just a compound with 2 shipping containers painted white, and a group of people sitting under a canopy, discussing something that sounded like science and politics at the same time. A tall woman with a hijab approached him. "You need help?" Onah hesitated. I came from Kogi. Someone gave me this address. Mr. Tolu." The woman smiled. "You're welcome. We don't do registration here. We do conversation. What do you want to learn?" That question struck him like lightning. No form to fill, no money to pay. Just curiosity. "I want to learn everything," he said without thinking. "I want to understand why things work, why people do what they do, how to use a computer, how to speak well, how to—" She raised her hand gently. laughing. One at a time, brother. Come, sit. That's how Onah's second education began. Not in a classroom, but on a plastic chair beneath a tree. The center was unlike anything he'd imagined. There were no teachers, only facilitators. People who led discussions. Everyone was both student and teacher. A 25-year-old girl who never finished secondary school taught Onah how to use Google. An elderly man who once taught in Ahmadu Bello University explained the stock market with drawings in the sand. There were no grades, only growth. No timetable, just time. Onah cleaned the compound to earn lunch. He slept in the unfinished back room with 3 other learners. An ex-bus conductor, a young mother who read Chinua Achebe like the Bible, and a barber who wrote poems at midnight. They read, talked, argued, watched YouTube videos, listened to TED Talks, and debated everything from how the brain works to why Nigerian elections fail. One day, during a lesson on computers, the center's only desktop crashed. Everyone groaned. Onah knelt beside it. Let me try. He unscrewed the casing, fiddled, and wiped dust from the RAM stick. The machine restarted. Where did you learn that? Someone asked. He smiled. Curiosity. Life in Lagos was still hard. But within the walls of the Falai Learning Center, Onah was becoming something new. Sharper, hungrier, more awake. The days blurred into ideas, and the nights were filled with quiet conversations under the stars. But Lagos had its own way of teaching too, outside the center. And one of Onah's greatest teachers came not from a book, but from the back seat of a broken taxi. It started the day the center's facilitator, Hafsat, asked Onah to pick up a donated printer from a warehouse in Ikeja. A volunteer had arranged it, but no one could go except him. She gave him 2,000 naira for transport, a note for the warehouse manager, and a smile that said, "Try not to get lost." Onah wasn't confident, but he was willing. At Oshodi, he flagged down a battered yellow and black taxi. The driver, a bald man with tired eyes and a toothpick dancing between his lips, looked him over once. "Where to?" "Ikeja, sir. 800 naira." Onah negotiated it down to 600 naira and jumped in. They drove off with a groan from the engine that sounded like a dying goat. But the taxi driver was no ordinary man. "You from Kogi?" the man asked, hearing Onah's accent. "Yes, sir. Igala. Strong people. My second wife's from Ankpa. She used to say, 'If fish day for soup, nothing spoil.'" He laughed. "So Wetin carry you to Lagos?" Onah hesitated. "To learn." The man paused, looked at him through the rearview mirror. "You dey go school?" "Not really. I attend a free center for curious people." The man chuckled. "Curiosity. Nigh that thing way kill cat?" "But it saved me," Onah said. The taxi driver grew quiet. For a moment, all that could be heard was traffic, horns, and the rustling of hawkers selling gala and soft drinks. Then the man said, "Let me tell you something. I've been driving this taxi for 19 years, but I never stopped learning. Every person that enters this car is a walking book. I ask questions. I listen. I've learned politics from lawyers, history from old men, parenting from frustrated mothers, and business from rich men who forget their manners when they're stuck in traffic." Onah leaned forward. "Really?" The man nodded. "I may not have certificate, but I get sense. Do you know who Epictetus is?" "Who?" "Greek philosopher. Was a slave. He said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. I learned that from a Unilag student who cried in this car after failing an exam." Onah was stunned. The man smiled and tapped the steering. "This car na my university. Lagos na my classroom." By the time they reached the warehouse, Onah didn't want to leave. He handed the man 600 naira, then hesitated. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Talk. Why do you keep learning?" The driver turned fully in his seat, toothpick now still. His voice softened. "Because I don't want to grow old and still be stuck in the same level of understanding I had at 25. The poor thing, for man to have gray hair but no wisdom. Knowledge be like fire. If you stop feeding it, it dies." Onah stepped out of the car feeling like he had just finished a master class. He collected the printer, returned to the center, and later that evening wrote in his notebook, "Today, I met a taxi driver who speaks like a philosopher. Lagos is full of hidden professors. I will learn from them all." He titled the page, "University of the Streets." 2 streets from the learning center in Akoka stood a quiet provision shop, tucked between a hair salon and a tailoring shed. Its signboard read Mama D's Mart, Groceries and Sundries. Most people passed it without a second glance. It sold sugar, gari, spaghetti, onions, and the usual sachet goods in small quantities. But inside that cramped shop was a treasure no supermarket in Lekki could boast of. Onah discovered it by accident. It was a Tuesday, and the learning center had run out of biro pens. Hafsat gave him 300 naira and pointed vaguely toward the nearby junction. There's one small shop. Ask for Mama D. She sells everything. He found the store easily enough. A plump, middle-aged woman with tribal marks sat behind the counter, fanning herself with a church program. "Yes, my pickin'," she said. "I need pen, Ma." She pulled out a pack and placed it before him. Then, noticing the book in his hand, she smiled. "You read that one finish?" Onah looked down at the title, Outliers, by Malcolm Gladwell. It was one of the few donated books in the center's mini-library. "Almost," he replied. "You like to read?" He nodded. "Yes, Ma." She stood slowly and pointed toward a shelf near the back, behind sacks of rice and bottles of vegetable oil. "You fit borrow book from there. Just bring Am back clean." "Nah, only rule." Curious, Onah moved closer. There, behind the provisions, was a makeshift bookshelf made of wooden planks and bricks. Books of every size, shape, and topic filled the rows. Some were classics, Things Fall Apart, Half of a Yellow Sun, Purple Hibiscus. Others were textbooks, biology, government, accounting. There were motivational books, novels, biographies, even one or two French grammar books. "You keep all these?" he asked in awe. "Yes," she said proudly. "Now my late husband start am. He be teacher for secondary school. Before dem transfer am go heaven too quick. He dey say make I never throw book away. So I keep dem. Then I add small one every time I get extra change." Onah was stunned. "You allow people borrow?" "Yes. Young people like you. I dey tell them, book no dey spoil. Not only people way no open, am dey do that. You want read?" He nodded, his eyes wide. She let him choose one. He picked The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. "It looks short," he said. She laughed. "Short book, long wisdom. You go enjoy am." That night, under a dim bulb in the sleeping quarters, Onah read the book in a single sitting. The story of Santiago, the shepherd boy who chased his dream, felt like his own life, translated into allegory. He returned it the next day and borrowed another. And another. Soon, he visited Mama D's shop twice a week, not for provisions, but for stories. She would quiz him on what he learned. Sometimes she recommended titles. Other times, they simply discussed life and people. "Mama D," he asked once, "how come you know so much?" She laughed and pointed to her forehead. "Pekin, knowledge no dey hide. If you find am, ego come out." He smiled and wrote that down. Knowledge is a stubborn light. No matter how small the flame, it shines if you open the cover. More than once, he brought others from the center to her shop. Soon, it wasn't just a provision store. It was a lending library, a gathering space, a place where Lagos noise faded and quiet wisdom was passed from one hand to another. Years later, Onah would call it the hidden library of Akoka. But for now, he was simply a boy learning to feed his mind, one borrowed book at a time. The Phalai Learning Center was always buzzing with different types of learners. But there was one boy who never talked much. He wore the same oversized hoodie every day, his face half buried inside it, and his eyes permanently fixed on a small battered laptop that looked like it had survived war. His name was Debo, short for Ayo Debo, and if Lagos had a legend for self-taught tech wizards, he was writing it line by line. Onah noticed him one afternoon when the center was unusually quiet. Debo sat alone in the corner, typing furiously. There was no Wi-Fi, no data, no light, just him, his laptop, and a small solar lamp taped to the table. When Onah passed by, he glanced at the screen and saw what looked like a language from another planet. "Wouldn't be that?" he asked. Debo didn't look up. "HTML. I dey build a simple website." Onah blinked. "With no internet?" Debo finally looked up. "Who say you need internet to learn? I download tutorials from Cafe last month. The ones way no play, I read PDF. No excuse, bro." Onah pulled a chair and sat. "Yeah, you understand all those things?" Debo nodded. Small. That code I dey speak now. You fit learn too, if you ready." Something about the boy's quiet confidence stirred Onah. He had seen people boast of things they barely understood. But Debo was different. Calm, precise, deep. Every evening for 2 weeks, Onah joined him. Debo explained the basics: tags, elements, styling, logic. No chalkboard, no certificate. Just 2 boys and a broken laptop under a borrowed solar lamp. They had no mouse, so they used keyboard shortcuts. No stable power, so they timed their learning to battery life. No fancy software, just Notepad and Chrome. "Why you dey learn this?" Onah asked once. Debo shrugged. "Because I know one day big person way no even sabi pass me. Tech day open door. Even if na back door." He showed Onah how to build a simple web page, his name in big letters, a picture of a lion, and a short bio. It wasn't much, but it felt like magic. That night, Onah couldn't sleep. He thought about how Debo, with nothing but hunger and a broken laptop, was creating his own future, click by click, key by key. He wrote in his journal, "Learning is no longer about who teaches you. It's about what you refuse to ignore. And sometimes, the best teachers are younger than you." A few weeks later, Debo surprised everyone. He built a small website for the center, a basic homepage with the words, "Curiosity is our syllabus. Everyone is a teacher. All are welcome." Hafsat cried. Tolu clapped. Mama D brought food for everyone. It was a celebration, not of technology, but of possibility. The rainy season arrived in Lagos with no apology. The clouds rolled in like tired spirits, and the sky wept for hours without pause. Streets turned to rivers. Motorcycles became boats. And in Falai Learning Center, learning continued, rain or not. But one afternoon, the storm proved too bold. Thunder clapped so loudly it rattled the windows. The roof over the main container classroom began to drip. Then trickle, then pour. Within minutes, the floor was soaked, notebooks ruined, a laptop narrowly saved. Everyone scrambled, lifting chairs, shielding books, dragging benches to the back where the roof still held. The once lively class turned into chaos. Onah stood in the middle, holding a leaking plastic bucket over a steady drip, as if that could stop the rain from entering their fragile sanctuary. Debo cursed under his breath. Hafsat looked like she might cry. Some learners quietly packed their bags and left. Outside, Lagos traffic hummed like a distant wave. Inside, silence, wet and uncomfortable. Then, an elderly man named Baba Musa stood up. He was the oldest learner at the center, over 60, with a limp leg and an addiction to newspapers. Nobody knew where he lived or how he always arrived early, but he was a fixture, especially during politics and history sessions. Now he stood at the front of the classroom, rain soaking his slippers, and spoke. "If rain enter your house, you no go burn am. You go patch am." The room stilled. Education no be roof. E no day spoil with water. E day inside your head. If we must learn under rain, we go do am. If we must share one dry table, we go squeeze body. He turned to Debo. "You fit connect that Bluetooth speaker way we used last week?" "Yes," Debo said, surprised. "Then put one podcast, anything on history. Let us learn. Let rain be our background music." That day, 20 soaked students sat close together, some on crates, others on the floor, huddled beneath a thin, dry patch. A podcast played. The history of Biafra, untold stories. Questions flew. Ideas sparked. Discussion rose louder than the thunder outside. Rain poured inside their classroom, but so did knowledge. Later, when the sun returned, they patched the roof with plastic bags, old banners, and duct tape. It wasn't perfect, but it held. Onah wrote in his notebook, "Real learning is waterproof. Even when the roof leaks, the mind stays dry." That evening, Tolu arrived with roofing sheets, tools, and 2 friends who had been watching from afar, engineers who offered to help renovate the center. Word had spread about what happened, and somehow, the rain had done what no flyer or online post ever could. It had shown the world how deeply these learners wanted to grow. Saturdays were meant to be rest days at the Falai Learning Center. But for most of the learners, especially those like Onah, rest was a luxury they couldn't afford. On Saturdays, survival took the front seat. To make ends meet, Onah started helping Mama D with bulk buying from Tejuosho Market. He carried bags, helped haggle, and loaded goods into Keke Napeps. It wasn't glamorous, but it earned him small change, sometimes lunch, and most importantly, stories. Because Tejuosho Market, Onah quickly discovered, was more than a place to buy and sell. It was a classroom. The sellers were professors. The traders were economists. The bus conductors were social psychologists. Every insult, every bargain, every dance of pricing had a rhythm, a logic, a language, and Onah paid close attention. One afternoon, while waiting for Mama D to finish pricing pepper, he wandered toward a woman selling Ankara fabrics. She was arguing fiercely, with a customer who wanted a discount. The woman shouted, "See this material? No just be cloth get cotton content. I import am from Ghana myself. You dey price me like Sena dust." Onah laughed, and the woman turned to him. "Weedin' funny. Nothing, ma. Just the way you dey defend your product. You sabi marketing well." She pointed at him. "Abi, marketing no be grammar, my brother. Na belief. If you no believe your product, who go believe am?" That struck a chord. He moved closer and began asking her questions. Where she sourced her fabric, how she calculated profits, how she dealt with difficult customers. She answered each one, proud and passionate. "School no teach me this one," she said. "Na street." Back at the learning center that evening, Onah shared what he learned. "Did you know some market women can calculate profit margins faster than a banker?" he asked Debo. Debo looked up from his laptop. "Really?" "Yes. I watched one woman break down her sales, stock turnover, and seasonal demand without writing anything down." Debo laughed. "And here I am thinking Python and Excel are everything. Knowledge day everywhere," Onah said. "Even inside sachet tomato seller mouth." The following week, Onah proposed something bold to Hafsat. "What if we go out once a month? Like real-life learning from people who don't even know they're teaching?" She loved the idea. They called it the Curiosity Walk. Once a month, learners would visit different parts of Lagos, not as tourists, but as observers. They would visit markets, mechanic workshops, local food joints, artisan sheds, even street corners. They took notes, asked questions, listened deeply. One day it was Bariga carpenters, the next it was Makoko boat makers. Everywhere, someone had something to teach, if you were humble enough to listen. Onah's worldview expanded. He stopped measuring intelligence by who spoke the best English or wore a suit. He saw genius in calloused hands and tired eyes. He wrote in his journal, "Every street is a syllabus. Every person is a paragraph. Lagos is a library with no shelves." And so, while others saw noise, chaos, and struggle in Lagos, Onah saw teachers everywhere. One dusty Wednesday afternoon, just as the sun began to soften over Yaba, Onah sat beneath the mango tree outside the Falai Learning Center. The day's topic had been emotional intelligence, and it stirred something in him, not because of what was said, but because of what remained unsaid. He was restless. He had learned so much these past months: coding, critical thinking, business skills, social psychology. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something still held him back, something deeper, something buried. As he scribbled half-hearted notes in the margins of his old journal, Hafsat approached with a box of donated pens and notebooks. "Please help pass these around," she said. Onah nodded. He opened the box and began distributing. As he popped the cap off one of the new bureaus to test it, something slipped out, a tiny folded piece of paper hidden beneath the cap. Curious, he unfolded it. It read, "If you find this, know that your mind is more powerful than your past. Don't stop." I almost did, but curiosity saved me. MK. He stared at the note. His breath caught. It wasn't the message that struck him. It was the timing. Just that morning, he had almost skipped class. He'd woken up, wondering if all this learning mattered. He had looked at his tattered shoes and thought, what is all this knowledge doing for me if I can't even afford decent sandals? But now, this note, hidden in the cap of a bureau, was like a whisper from the universe. Keep going. He asked Hafsat, "Do you know who MK is?" She shook her head. "Could be one of the former learners. Many passed through before you." He kept the note in his wallet, like a sacred charm. Over the next few days, he began noticing something strange. Others had found similar hidden notes, in donated books, under desk drawers, scribbled behind old worksheets. They were messages. Each one was short, handwritten, and anonymous. Some were affirmations. "One day, you'll thank yourself for not quitting." Others were personal. "My father said I was useless, but I taught myself to fix phones. Now I teach others." And some were simply wise. "No one is born knowing. We all borrow light." Hafsat gathered the notes and pinned them to a board at the entrance of the center. They called it the Wall of Words. Learners began leaving notes too. Folded papers under chairs, between books, behind switchboards. The center had unknowingly birthed a culture of hidden encouragement. Onah began writing his own messages and hiding them. One behind the water dispenser, another under a table, and one inside the back cover of The Alchemist, now worn from use. His favorite message? Curiosity is resistance. In a world that wants you to settle, to stop asking, to be quiet, stay curious. You are not done yet. Years later, long after he had left the center, started a tech hub, and mentored dozens of others, Someone emailed him with a photo of a note they found. It simply said, "To the next dreamer, you're not lost. You're learning." Onah Ocholi, the boy who once carried cement for a living, now a teacher of teachers. Onah's fingers trembled as he held the envelope bearing the logo of Bitrise Technologies. He sat on the edge of his threadbare mattress in the modest room he rented in Agungi, Lekki. Rain pattered gently against the louve windows, but in Onah's chest, a storm thundered. Inside the envelope was an offer letter, a job offer. He had applied for it with trembling hope, mostly because it was a no-degree required entry role for junior tech support. One of his friends from the computer cafe had forwarded it to him on WhatsApp. The same friend had taught him how to register a Gmail account just 3 months prior. He slowly slid the paper out. Words danced before his eyes. "Dear Mr. Onah Emmanuel, we are pleased to inform you." His breath caught. Monthly gross salary of 220,000 naira only, plus performance incentives. His knees buckled, and he sat back on the bed. But there was a problem. He couldn't read it all. Not because it was in English. Onah had passed English in Nico. It was because he didn't understand half the terms. Gross salary, performance KPIs, probationary period, contractual obligations, data confidentiality, NDAs. Even the role title, Junior Onboarding Specialist, felt like a secret code from another planet. He had spent years learning to code on a shared phone, watching YouTube videos at night, and trying free Python exercises from Stack Overflow. He knew logic. He could write scripts. He even helped debug his friend Musa's mobile game. But he had no idea what contractual indemnity meant. He felt like a fraud. So he folded the paper, slipped it back into the envelope, and walked out into the night, down the street to the only place in Lagos that had never turned him away. Mama Tolu's provision store. The old woman who was a friend, she sat beneath the yellow lantern glow, arranging gala sausages beside packs of cabin biscuits. She looked up as he approached. "Ah, my philosopher boy has returned," she teased. He smiled weakly. "Mama, I beg. I get one letter. I no understand, am." She wiped her hands on her wrapper, took the envelope, and adjusted her thick glasses. Is it English or coded?" "Nah, both." She chuckled. "Sit down." Together, line by line, she read the letter aloud, stopping every few seconds to explain like she did back some time ago, when she had taught him the difference between sympathy and, quote, empathy, using only Chinua Achebe quotes. By the end of the hour, Onah understood. He understood that he had been offered not just a job, but a seat at a new table. He wasn't ready, but he would learn. Before he left, she touched his hand and said, "Remember what I told you? Not curiosity carry tortoise, reach the top of palm tree. You reach here because you never stop asking questions." Bitrise Technologies wasn't a campus, but to Onah, it was a university. His colleagues were from Covenant University, Babcock, FUTA, and even abroad. They spoke in acronyms: JIRA, API calls, React components, Docker containers. In their first stand-up meeting, someone said, "We need to deploy by EOD." Onah looked around, confused. Was EOD a person? He wrote it down quietly on the back of his ID badge and Googled it in the bathroom. End of day. He started a notebook. At the top, he scribbled in bold, "School of the Curious." Every unfamiliar term got an entry. He filled it religiously. During lunch breaks, instead of eating in the break room, he sat beside the janitor, Mr. Ibe, who always listened to the radio. They would talk about politics, then somehow end up discussing history, war, and African economics. "Who taught you all this?" Onah once asked. "I sweep floors," Mr. Ibe said, tapping his temple, "but I never stopped sweeping knowledge into my head." On weekends, Onah watched MIT lectures on YouTube. He couldn't afford a laptop, but he borrowed one overnight from Musa every Friday. He still didn't speak much in meetings, but when he did, his words made sense. One day, after fixing a customer's issue in a way that improved a legacy system bug, his supervisor, Shade, called him aside. "Where did you learn that workaround?" He smiled. "Curiosity, Ma." Bitrise had a tradition. After 1 year, junior hires gave a short presentation about what they had learned. It wasn't compulsory, but Onah volunteered. He stood before the room in his ironed blue shirt, the only one he owned without a missing button. His palms were damp. Behind him, on the TV screen, was his presentation. From inquiry to impact, the journey of curiosity. He didn't use big words. He told them about Igala, about the woman with the books in her shop, about the boy who learned Python through a Nokia torchlight. He shared how asking why had changed his life more than any classroom ever did. When he finished, the room was silent for a breath. Then Shade stood up and clapped. Others followed. That week, his contract was upgraded. He became a full employee. He didn't wear a graduation gown. But that day, walking home under a gray Lego sky, Onah knew he had graduated. A year later, Onah returned to Kogi. The classroom still had no proper roof. The children still sat 3 to a bench. But this time, Onah brought more than stories. He brought 6 laptops, donated by Bitrise. He brought solar panels from a nonprofit. He brought books, hundreds of them, some in Igala, some in English. And he brought curiosity. He sat with the children beneath the tree outside and asked them questions. What is electricity? How do birds know where to go? Why does the moon follow us when we walk? He didn't give answers. He waited. Let them ask. Let them wonder. He knew now. He who knows not, and knows that he knows not, is a student. He who knows not, and thinks he knows, is lost. But he who knows not, and chooses to ask, he is wise already. As the wind stirred the trees and children's laughter filled the air, Onah smiled. His journey was not done. It had only just begun. Moral of the story: learn every day. Stay curious. Knowledge never goes out of style. Curiosity is not just a trait. It's a bridge from where we are to where we dream to be. True learning never ends, and no knowledge is wasted. That brings us to the end of the story. What lesson did you take from it? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you'll know whenever we release a new video. Also, feel free to share this with someone who might enjoy it. Thank you so much.